What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involved with the markets, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break things down, all this information, before I get into any more details and give you guys any price predictions, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just about 10 hours from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. Looking at SPY, we're getting very, very tight right now as this thing is continuing to consolidate. I have a very, very nice looking pennant that is forming, but looking at the trend, we'll see which way this breaks. As of right now, there is a possible structure that looks a bit more bearish if we do continue to kind of downtrend here, kind of lose the support. And if this is a lower high that's truly being established relative to this high right here, there are a lot of signals that suggest that SPY could see more downside, but we'll watch for more confirmation just to be safe. So I want to talk more about this and break down what I think could end up happening and some important levels and such a little bit later into this video. But first, let's talk about something else that's very important. That's going to be this right here. Please know that when it comes to the overall market, okay, the Nasdaq has closed above 17,000 for the first time, and the Dow has slid more than 200 points. So that's actually something very important. The market was very mixed today. The Nasdaq is holding it very well, primarily because of Nvidia, right? That's helping this thing continue to pump as Nvidia is exploding. The Dow is down quite a bit, and then the S&P 500 was very flat. So the market's all over the place today. The S&P 500 was actually down for most of today before getting an end of the day pump to try to push us back into the green. For the most part, the sellers were in control for most of today until the very end of the day. Now, moving forward, when it comes to what's happening for tomorrow, I just want to mention that tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. So this is going to be very important because tomorrow, 30 minutes after the market opens at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have some data coming out. We have the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index, the manufacturing shipments, and Fed services. All of this is going to be coming out. So look for some volatility 30 minutes after the market opens. We'll see what all this data comes out from the Richmond Fed. Then we have more services data at 10:30, not to mention the bill auctions at 11:30, and then at 2 p.m. we have the beige book coming out, which could cause somewhat of a move. Usually it's not that crazy. So what is all this data? Mostly it's just a lot of data involving manufacturing and services, a couple of bill auctions, and then the Fed beige book. I would say watch for some volatility for the first 30 minutes and the first hour of the day with all this data coming out involving manufacturing and services. The bill auctions tend to not be that crazy, and then we'll see what the Fed beige book causes. Usually, it's nothing too insane. It shouldn't be that crazy because it just gives us a good report of how the economy is doing, at least according to the Fed. So we'll see. But besides that, I would say the main times to watch for volatility are 30 minutes and 1 hour after market open. And then, excuse me, as a reminder for Thursday. Okay, it's very important to note that we have the GDP numbers coming out. This might cause some volatility as well because GDP sales are pivotal for the way that the economy is viewed. And then for Friday, excuse me, we have the PCE data coming out. So Thursday and Friday is when we have some very important data coming out. And tomorrow is going to be the last quiet day for data. Most of the data is very, very minor for Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday will be a lot more intense. All right, so watch for volatility for the first 30 minutes to 1 hour of the day. Moving forward, when it comes to the way earnings are looking, please note that for Wednesday, it's going to be tomorrow, before the market opens, we have Chewy and Dick's Sporting Goods announcing their earnings, lots of retail. After the market closes, we have Salesforce, not to mention AI. And then on Thursday, we have Kohl's, Foot Locker, Dollar General, and a few others before market open. And then we have Costco and Dell after the market closes. So how do I think this is going to go? Well, honestly, guys, most of these earnings are very minor. So each of these individual tickers may make the big moves. It won't really affect the market too much because none of these are that significant. Costco could affect some headlines, but for the most part, not that significant in my personal opinion compared to like Aapl or Nvidia. Moving forward, one last thing I just want to note is that the fear and greed index is currently kind of neutral in the middle, not too fearful, not too greedy, just in the neutral position. And we'll see what shifts come at least moving forward. Market momentum is also kind of greedy. We'll see if this shifts as well. When it comes to other factors, we also have the put and call option positioning currently at 0.76. It's kind of neutral right now. So we'll have to see how things kind of change from here. If we start to see a lot more of a shift and we continue to see more and more of this call buying that's happening, then that could shift things quite a bit. If if not, things are just going to remain the same. But what is happening right now is people are becoming a little bit more, I would say, apprehensive about the markets. We're starting to see a little bit more shorting that's happening, but nothing too crazy, in my personal opinion, overall. Market volatility is currently neutral. We're starting to see a little shift right over here in terms of the VIX. It's going up just a bit, but nothing too crazy overall. When it comes to other factors, I just want to note that that's what we're seeing, at least for now, for the Fear and Greed Index. Now, going back to what we're seeing on the charts, it's time to focus on what's really happening. So now let's talk about this. What do I think is going to pan out, at least for SPY, in my personal opinion? What I'm first going to do is kind of hide this drawing. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit for you guys and show you guys what I see on the chart thus far. So looking at the daily, like one of the things I called out, I would be very careful with this bearish engulfing candle that's forming. We did see this, a couple of weeks ago, back in April. We had this bearish engulfing candle. SPY went up for a couple of days. Then we got this big rejection, and that's something that's worth noting. Okay, and there's another time this happened back in July, I believe. This has happened multiple times, but typically during peaks, that also tends to mark tops. So back in July of last year, we had a bearish engulfing candle, popped a little bit higher, then we saw this continue to fall. So we saw this happen during two setups as we we're approaching highs. The question is, are we about to see some downside again? Well, what is suspicious to me is the fact that we have that gap, a very big gap around 523. That does make me suspect that there could be a move to the downside, but there's no confirmation of that happening yet. We're losing momentum on the daily, and the daily does show that we're kind of trading sideways for now, but we have to wait and see if we end up getting that break. On the 4 hour time frame, we're also kind of dipping in the after hours right now. SPY is currently actually in the lower 529s at the time I'm recording this. But what's holding us so far is very close to this 50 EMA. I would say losing this will be the determinant of whether or not we're going to continue to fall. If we do end up losing this support, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way down to fill this gap. If we hold this, then we could continue to bounce off of it, but that's going to be very, very key to see which way we end up going. As of right now, we're hovering above it. We haven't really seen a big drop yet, so I'll be watching some very, very key levels. In my personal opinion, SPY's analysis is very simple. If we were to be bullish, hypothetically, okay, if we have to break this high right here at 531.5. If we break that, I'll be looking at the imbalance to fill at 533.8. Break the all-time high, then we're going up to the 540s, and SPY will continue to rally. But one thing worth noting is that SPY was kind of trading in this range for quite some time. It's starting to show some signs of exhaustion. So that's looking a little bit less likely. If we're bearish on SPY, you want to see it basically lose this low right here. We want to lose firstly 529, then 527.25, lose those supports. Then our next level will be where the 4 hour 50 EMA happened to be. And if we lose the 526s, that's also aligning with our 200 EMA. Then we're going to be coming all the way down to 523, straight down, in my personal opinion. So those are your levels to watch for. What do I think is going to happen? We'll see which way we break. This trend is favoring downside a bit more because we are technically downtrending on SPY. But just to be safe, let's watch for confirmation if we lose the support and start sinking and we continue to fall like this. I'll be watching just for confirmation. The chart does favor the downside, maybe a pop and drop like move or a move all the way down to 528 again. So we'll be very careful and we'll be very, very open-minded nonetheless. For Nvidia, let me just note that Nvidia is a monster. It is continuing to look very, very strong. I was talking about 1140 to 1150 being levels I'd watch for. Now I would say this, watch for these couple of levels. We firstly have this 1150 area. Then we also have 1160, 1180, and then 1200 as our levels on Nvidia. These are the levels I kind of calculated earlier. I'll be watching to see if Nvidia could test a bunch of these different levels. It's still looking bullish overall. That's the thing about Nvidia. There's no sign of this actually losing support. Uh, there's no sign of this actually getting a rejection quite yet. So we'll have to give this some time. If we end up losing support at 1140, then yes, we could be dipping all the way down towards 1120. That's going to be where our 20 EMA happens to be. But as of right now, there's no sign of this breaking. That's the thing. We haven't officially lost 1150. We could still try to break through this and try to push a little higher. So there is potential in Nvidia, in my personal opinion. For other factors involving the markets, for Tesla, in my personal opinion, is still range bound. We have resistance currently around this 180 area, and we have support all the way down between 172 to 173. So, in my personal opinion, if you look at the way Tesla looks, we have a nice head and shoulders like structure, and we also have this support down here in the lower 170s. Overall, despite the fact that Tesla is holding up, I want to say two things. Number one, for the longer term, by long term, I don't mean long term, I mean medium term. I want to make that little correction. By the time we approach the June to July period, I'm bullish on Tesla. Okay, I'm still very bullish on Tesla. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders. We're going to likely see a big pump to the 200s, in my personal opinion, in the next 2 to 4 weeks. All right. But we're not in June yet. And as of right now, when you zoom in, all Tesla's been doing is consolidating, forming a right shoulder. We're consolidating, trading sideways. going back and forth between 180 as resistance and then 172 to 173 as support. So we're going to likely continue to do that in my personal opinion, especially if the market dips a little bit before we get ready for a big June squeeze. For tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla kind of pops to about 178, maybe goes a little bit higher, comes back down, hits 173.5, just continues to trade sideways again and again. That's what I think is the most likely possibility. Could we dip it a little bit lower? Yes, we could, but it's going to likely just remain in this range, be very, very boring. There's going to be a big move coming in June, though, so we'll have to give this some time and see how things end up going from there. For the QQQ, this is looking very strong. It's actually holding up very, very well, but I'd be very careful because even though it's holding up, I'll be watching to see how it ends up reacting to this support because you have to consider that we have this resistance right over here that's kind of developing. This is going to be our support zone. We're actually trying to hold this trend line right here. And we also have this other resistance that's kind of developing up here. So I'll be watching to see if we could try to break this or not. If we do try to break through this, I would consider that this might, attempt to push higher, try to break this resistance. If we end up doing so, if we manage to break through it, I'll be watching for a push for 461. Nvidia is helping this hold up very, very well. But if we get a rejection off 460, then yes, we're going to be dipping back down to about 457. 457, in my opinion, is the support zone to be watching for. If we lose that, then yes, we're going to see a bigger move to the downside towards 455. I'll be watching to see what it ends up doing because today it was very indecisive. Even though we're up 0.3%, we kind of like went up on Friday, came down, up, down, like all day. So it's very indecisive. We have to wait and see which way we break. That's why I'm just kind of in the middle with the QQQ. I'll give it some time nonetheless. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin has resistance currently at 68,500. If we break that, we have 69,000 next. And we have support currently at 67,500. If we lose that, we'll be dipping. In my personal opinion, I think that we're just kind of trading sideways within a range. We could attempt to go a little higher on Bitcoin, though. There could be a push for about 69,000 before we reject again. So I think it's just going to continue to range trade for the short term. There could be bigger moves in the longer term, but for now, look for some sideways price action. For Apple stock, Apple has basically support at 189.3. We have resistance at 190.5. So we'll be watching to see which way this ends up going. If we break resistance here, we're going to be looking for a pushback up towards 191.5. If we lose 189.3, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 188. In my opinion, the setup looks a little bit more bearish on Apple. We could kind of pop and drop from here. So there's a risk of it kind of dipping, and we'll see how things go from there. For other factors, I just wanted to now talk about the overall market and just talk about other tickers that are a lot smaller. So in my opinion, guys, the market's in a very, very interesting place. Many stocks are very indecisive, but there are some risks of downside for some tickers like SPY and the others. But always be open-minded just to be safe. I also want to note one more thing, guys. Nio. I know a lot of people may not like this chart and say a lot of things about it. That's fine. But I think there's going to be a big move coming, especially to the upside. And the reason I think that is because the registrations have come out. For the first 26 days in May, they did 15,400 deliveries, which is almost equivalent to what they did for all of April. This means that in the last 5 days, if they deliver a couple extra thousand, there's going to be a big growth in deliveries month over month, and also year over year, and that might fuel a big push on June 1st once they announce their deliveries. So I favor upside for this. We could consolidate for it, even dip a little bit temporarily, but once June 1st comes, approaching earnings, we could see a big bounce. For Palantir is just trading sideways once again, not really doing a whole lot. We have support currently at 21 and also where this white trend line happens to be. And we have resistance at 21.3, not to mention 22. Overall, we're just going to be watching this trend line. We are trying to kind of bounce off this and kind of uptrend from here. So we'll see if we continue this uptrend or not. If we lose 20.5, then yes, we could be dipping back down. But overall, we'll see what this ends up doing. But overall, I just want to say that Palantir is going to likely dip a little bit lower, retest this low in the, I would say, mid-20s, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not, but there is some weakness on the chart. For Supermicro, unlike Nvidia, it's actually showing some weakness right now. We did mention this yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually retest 880 before we come back down towards our 200 EMA at 857. So look for a pop and drop like move and some downside on Supermicro. For Rivian, we have our 200 EMA as resistance. If we retest that and we end up rejecting, watch 10.27 as support. Losing that's going to open the doors for about a $10 drop. A drop to $10 basically is what I mean. So if I was looking a bit more bearish, we have a head and shoulders like structure. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of make our way down towards about 6.8, maybe a little bit lower. This looks a bit more bearish looking at the setup, has just some relative weakness. The IWM Russell 2000 pushed to 207 as predicted before getting rejected. We also called that out. I said a pop and drop is likely coming. I could see this actually dipping towards our 200 EMA towards 203 as we have a gap to fill. So I favor this kind of dipping a bit to fill this gap in the 203s to 202 area, very close to where our 200 EMA happens to be. AMD is holding up very well. We did call this nice little push that was coming. We also have this imbalance to fill all the way up here about 177 a share. I think it's going to dip first. There might be a little dip coming to retest 170. Then we could continue to go a little higher towards 178 before anything else. The trend is still bullish whether we dip or not. There's still more potential for 178 later on. For ARM is looking a bit more bullish in my personal opinion. Going to be looking for a test about 128. We could dip first before we try to make our move higher. But overall, that's what I'm seeing. For Coinbase, we're looking more bullish. Got a nice breakout above our resistance up here. So I think it might just continue to try to push here. So if we break this high, continue going, we'll be looking for about 250 as our potential targets. I find that to be very probable. So look for a push even higher towards 250. For Amazon has resistance currently at around our 4-hour 20 EMA, 182.4, and also we have resistance at 183.5. We have support currently at this 180 zone, so we're kind of consolidating over here, trading sideways. It's been like this for about 2 days, so we will see what this ends up doing. I think that there is potential for this to try to break past 182.4 and go a little higher to 183.5, but for now we're kind of trading sideways, so despite the potential, it might just continue to range trade. Meta is looking like it's showing some life, but be careful with the head and shoulder structure. If we break this high at 480, watch 482, and if we break that, look for 485. If we end up rejecting and losing 475, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way down towards 472, and the head and shoulders could still play out. It is looking more like it wants to push higher as we're seeing some nice consolidation, and the next leg up could take us up to at least 485 or higher, so it does favor upside, but just to be safe, watch and see if we can break the high. Microsoft is looking a little bit weaker. It did push very, very hard already. Watch support around basically 428, and we have resistance at 432.5. We've been range bound for now. If we do lose the support, look for a little dip, but overall, we're still holding up very, very well for Microsoft. For Google has resistance currently around this 178 area, and we have support at 176.93. If we lose that, there could be a little dip coming. But overall, in the 4-hour, we are showing some life, so I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of dip a little bit. Might dip just a bit, retest 177, then start pushing higher for 180. I do think that this chart favors the upside from a technical standpoint. Is AMC and GameStop about to explode? As of right now, GameStop could be trying to break out, but we have to see if this establishes a higher low or not. So watch support. We have to try to hold 20. Let me double check this. 22. If we hold 22 on GameStop, yes, we could start to break out a little higher towards 30. If we lose 22, I'm going to be looking for a dip back down to about 20 flat and eventually 18. So watch 22. Do we hold 22? If we do, yes, it could bounce more. If not, it is what it is. AMC also looks like it has a bullish looking chart for my personal opinion. We are seeing a nice accumulation right over here. I think that we have potential to potentially break out a little bit later on in the next couple of months. But for the short term, watch and see how well we hold up, because we kind of struggled to hold up today. We kind of popped and dropped. Watch support around 4.66. We'll see how things go from there. I'll be very, very patient nonetheless. For DJT, we got a bounce exactly as predicted. We filled this imbalance at 48. We actually approached 50. Watch support currently around 47.6. We might test up before we try to bounce. The VIX is not officially breaking up, but it is showing some life. I did tell everyone the VIX likes to bounce around this area. We'll see if it continues. If we do break this high, then this is a sign of strength on the VIX. Our next target is going to be 14 if we break the high. So I'll just have to wait and see. For the 10-year Treasury yield, we're looking a little bit more bullish. Could go a little higher to fill this gap, so we'll see how that goes. And then for the dollar index, right now, the dollar is trying to pop a bit. It could try to go a little higher. We do have a head and shoulders like structure, but this could also be a trap. But as of right now, it's showing some signs that wants to push a little higher, which could be bearish for the markets. So it might be trying to approach where our 50 EMA is at 104.72. With that being said, guys, the market's very indecisive, so we have to give it some time. Be very, very open-minded for anything based off how the market could move. But right now, just know that the bears have a bit of an edge looking at how high the market is and the trend that's developing. So we'll give this some time and see how things go. But with that being said, I just want to thank you all so much for listening, guys. Thank you. Have a very, very awesome rest of the day. And do not forget that the Moomoo link is about to expire. It ends in just about 10 hours. So I will see you guys very soon tomorrow morning before the market opens. And until then, have a great evening and take care, everyone. Thank you for listening, and peace out.